So do you want to skip this all together while we're on the subject of music games, or do you want to briefly talk about IGN IGN's music hubs?
Oh no, let's talk about this because you were really going after this
Yeah.
on Twitter. I was like, wow.
So
So
originally,
so yeah, go ahead and say
uh,
it.
um, well, originally I found that there was like if you go to it's called musichub.ign, just the URL made it sound as though it was um just that, right? Where you go to check out music video games or something, or just like information about music in general, since I know they have comic hubs and stuff like that. And I was surprised to see that it was actually nothing but promotional material. Um, there was some confusion at first. One spokesperson talked to Andrew at One Last Continue and saying that this is a community site and how dare you insult the community of people who write about games. I mean, who come together and express their fandom and proactive ways by making community sites. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, Fireball, because for one, this isn't like just some shit that some fans whipped up together. I mean, every single thing on there was basically about the forthcoming releases of DJ Hero and Guitar Hero 5. There was nothing about here's the cool Guitar Hero 4 party we had, or here's some other nothing that would you would associate with the community site. And then the writing even was as far as clarity and correctness goes, it was far superior to anything that IGN itself typically publishes. The content, though, was absolutely what you'd expect from vetted and polished PR pieces. So my concern only there was with branding. I thought that it was just okay. Change the name and say this. Say somewhere. The other thing, it wasn't clear on
So
this
wait,
site.
describe what it was exactly. Like describe the page for people who didn't see
Okay,
it.
yeah, I got the because I'm actually my conspiracy turn ended up turning to something far more sinister. So I was like trying to fast forward to that, but let me take a look at it right now, musichub.ign, and see what they still have. Um, it's essentially just nothing but uh, Guitar Hero brand stuff everywhere. Guitar Hero. Oh, here it is. Here's a link to it. Let me just open this up in a tab. But it's just basically here's a story. Someone wrote a preview about one of these games. Take a look. Here's a mall tour schedule is on there right now. Previews at different sites. There were several stories that are about how the Kurt Cobain issue it isn't such an issue after all. That Activision has the rights and that Courtney Love is a crazy bitch. And there was just communities also, they tend to be a lot more heterogeneous, I think, than this. And so any of this aside, I was like, okay, it's clear to me that Activision paid to have this done. And they ended up coming out and admitting that later. They're like, yes, we were being compensated in order to run this hub for Activision. And all that. My only thing is like, okay, just rename the thing. Like Music Hub doesn't sound like it. And they said that, yeah, in the interview, that I suggest people go take a look at onelastcontinue.com. The guy from IGN was saying that this is the name that Activision wanted, so this is what we gave it. And I mean, they're just playing political. Everyone knew from the very beginning why you would call it that, and why it doesn't say. They now added, actually, to their credit, at the very top, it says an IGN community site for Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, and Band Hero. That wasn't up until I started raising the shitstorm. But the thing that ended up bothering me, I was like, that wasn't such a big deal. Then when I went to their official IGN, the URL is music.ign.com. I noticed that there's Guitar Hero and DJ Hero promotions everywhere, and that didn't seem like such a big deal. But then I started looking at the stories. If you go to this page and look, I mean, you guys should both do this now. If you look at featured promotions, it's for DJ Hero, it's the Music Hub, which we just discussed, a Hero Wiki, which is also hilarious because the entry for harmonics in there, basically they stopped existing the moment they stopped making Guitar Hero or contributing.
I was just looking at that and they fixed that.
Oh, they did add. Okay, this is the thing
They
too. I took
fixed
a
it.
ton of screenshots but the stuff I'm about to explain is the stuff that was really troubling to me. This stuff that I think is the suggestion is flat out unethical and just dirty, and would make me personally want nothing to do with the site whatsoever. Um, and that's that under their articles now on Music IGN, which is not a community site. This is the Music Hub for the official IGN website. If you go through the stories, every single story, almost without fail, click it, and it turns out to really be um, about Guitar Hero or DJ Hero. And I would say for the past 5 days, ignore those because that's when I started pointing this out publicly. But if you go back before then, you'll notice anything. Just click one of the things, and it's ultimately um, about promoting these games. And then the other interesting thing is that the byline every time this is the case is IGN Music. And if you look on the rest of their site, they usually attribute a writer to everything. And this is the other funny thing too, is that as soon as I pointed this out, like I started seeing byline things. And actually, now I'm going to sound like a fucking crackpot. Let me put this out in really clear language. Every story that's got the byline of IGN Music reads exactly like it was provided by a PR person. And I say this as an editor, someone who'd been an editor for a long time. I'm used to looking at the type of copy that goes through. I'm used to looking at the quality of copy that's published online on websites like this. And it seemed curious to me that every time it was essentially a fluff piece promoting one of these games, it didn't have a byline. And other times, and the writing was noticeably poorer in quality, would have a byline, and it would seem
that makes it so much more sad.
Yeah.
Where it's like
Wow.
the authentic thing is like bad grammar and horrible writing, and the fake thing they've actually like hired someone who can write, and so it sticks out like a sore thumb.
So the fucked up thing now is just click up on the top. There's a latest updates tab, and if you click that, you can actually look at their past 3 months worth of content. And so I started looking around 999, which is when Beatles Rock Band came out, and I was surprised to see that there was nothing about the game at all, in the weeks preceding or following that. And in fact, the only thing about Beatles was something published the day before, and it was about the Beatles stereo box set review, and that was written with a byline and by Hillary Goldstein, and it doesn't mention the Beatles Rock Band. And the curious thing there is that one, okay, if I'm an editor for a music site that's connected to a video game thing, I would say, what are people going to be Googling this week? What are they going to be talking about? What are they going to be looking for? What are they going to be posting on message boards where they're likely to leave a link to our story? We definitely want to cover. It's a no-brainer. You want to cover this, and you want to cover it in interesting ways where people are going to say, oh, this isn't just yet another review or just another story on this. And yet there's no reflection of that on this hub here. But furthermore, is like if you're going to do a story, I'm trying to find an example. Okay, Coldplay, worst to best. You're like, oh, this is a feature on Coldplay, but the byline there is IGN Music, and it reminds you that their music is featured in the newly released Guitar Hero 5. So we thought it'd be a good time to take a look at their discography. So when you see this on literally dozens and dozens of stories that came out at the exact same time, the exact same week, and they somehow mention the forthcoming Guitar Hero 5, and their one and only fucking Beatles related story doesn't mention the other thing, and that's the one with the byline. So I started talking to people privately about this, saying, hey, have I lost my fucking mind? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I mean, totally, generally a skeptic about most things in my life. And they all agreed. They're like, yeah, this definitely seems fishy, especially when you go and look at the writing. You start to look at it really closely. And then when you go back to the interview, the last interview that was published on One Last Continue, look specifically at the omissions, which questions the interviewee declined to answer without saying he was declining to answer them, just basically duck them. And I'm still convinced, like I said, this is personally, I'm convinced that IGN is using their official music hub to run content provided by PR companies. So that would explain the omission in and of itself. They're basically letting Activision's PR write the majority of content for this site. And I think that
the thing that I
case,
don't get is like, why don't they just go ahead and, I mean, would you have any objection if this page looked exactly the same as it looks right now, but above where it says Music Hub, an IGN community site for Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, and Band Hero, if it just said Music Hub, an IGN community site for Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, and Band Hero, advertisement, like, would you have a problem
well,
with it?
Don't
because
confuse again. No.
It's so obviously an advertisement.
No, but this is God. This is where I need to figure out what I'm explaining that's not being clear about this, because this happened on Twitter, and I was like, fuck. I know Twitter is not the place to ever communicate something. You're talking about musichub.ign.com, right? Which is now marked an IGN community site. So I'm no longer talking about that. I'm talking about music.ign.com, which is their Guitar Hero site. This is, if you want to
Ah,
learn about anything to do with music and you're on IGN, this is where you go. This is not
oh.
associated with it. See, this is the problem I had, and the confusion ended up working perfectly in their interest because they were able to say like, oh yeah, this was the problem, we fixed it. But that was the thing I found the first like day, and then when I looked is when I found the thing that was really troubling. So, yeah, Music Hub is just like you said, just to make this super clear for anyone who hasn't followed this, is IGN's community site for Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, and Band Hero. The problem was the way that it was labeled. They didn't explain what it was at first. It seemed like official content, so that's fine. It's now marked, and you understand that it is not content, editorial content provided by IGN. But
Well, it's not
music.ign,
really marked. It still kind of looks like it still kind of looks like it's official from
right?
them. They haven't marked it as an advertisement,
I'm
which
just
they
willing to
should.
give it the pass because it's so pissant compared to what I'm pointing out now. And like, sometimes just go there, go to music.ign and see for yourself that this is their site. This is where they cover their music stuff. And it now, does that make sense? Now do you see why that's far
Yes,
more
yeah.
troubling?
I get what you're saying.
The equivalent is like if you go to New York Times and you're reading stories about the Beatles, and the byline is New York Times music, and that magazine and that paper has a tradition of attributing, of sourcing its writers, and so that's inexplicably there. And what you're reading doesn't seem to match the editorial style of anything else in the thing, and it seems to totally be selling a product. But moreover, every other page in the paper for the past 2 months was doing that for the same product.
Yeah.
I It's pretty fucking pathetic, is what I mean. I don't know what else to say about it, dude. It's,
I just have to wonder like who it is that's reading this stuff even as I'm staring at this page like it just seems so arcane to come to IGN and read stories about like DJ Jazzy Jeff coming to DJ Hero.
right.
Like, ooh,
Or
that's an interesting story.
who
I'd
would
like to know
yeah,
about
who would
that.
go
I love the
for
Fresh Prince of
any
Bel-Air.
music news whatsoever? I mean, even if you were the dumpiest like kid who has like a fucking Jonas Brothers boogie board, you wouldn't go to IGN Music for to learn about music. You know, you presumably be going
No.
to someplace that better services your needs. You know, like the
So I
massage
guess
parlor.
that we might have now figured out why it is that they have to be funded by the Activision music games because no one's fucking reading it.
I want to hear N guy go and argue because with the story that's called Jay Z Worst to Best, we rank the prolific MC's body of work. And this is also about DJ Hero, which yeah, they got a nice breakdown.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess the thing is too is that on music.ign. So if you're on music.ign and um you click on which of these Renegades, it's the one that has the photo of Jay-Z and Eminem.
Uh huh.
So Renegade Tracks revealed. So you click on that, and then it takes you. You'll see, like right over the headline, it says Music Hub presents.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I mean, it would seem to me like if I were doing something like this, I would want to. I wouldn't actually cross link stuff.
And
You know
it's
what I'm
totally
saying? I mean, like
cross-linked.
it just it's one of those things like it definitely because like now you can't tell like you look at that and it almost looks like a banner.
It does, and it's like that's I don't even understand. Music Hub presents Guitar Hero 5, but that was the other funny thing. Incidentally, when at first the guy was like, "Oh yeah, you know this is a community site, and you're shitting on on all the people and communities out there," and like meanwhile, like right click on that button and look at the properties. It's fucking ads.ign/advertiser slash Activision. I was like, oh yeah, like and trying what a bitch maneuver, dude. He tried to paint it as though like, oh yeah, look, if you're out there and you made a Big Daddy
like, there's a
costume for
huge
Halloween, fuck you. We don't like that. So it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with like my concern is that there was no real community generated content on that site because communities don't just sit there and do that. They do far more fucking creative and worthwhile things.
Yeah. I love the idea that there's a community around this shit at IGN.
Community's the new, yeah, it's the new like populism. Like the other thing though, like I do encourage we can let people can come to their own conclusions. But I mean, when you're clicking around there, especially from the past few months, and skip back a week from today when I suspect some of the changes reflected the stink that a couple of us were making. Even look at if it's like, hey, like a highlight of a music video, and you're like, hey, this ostensibly doesn't have anything to do with Guitar Hero. Click it and hit the fucking play button, and the first question is always like, so yeah, do you play Guitar Hero? It's amazing. I mean, I'm serious. That's how bad it really is, dude. Uh, but anyhow,
You just went straight
Well,
60 minutes right there, Sean.
I wish it hadn't happened when I'm so fucking out of it and like doped up on cough medicine and sick. But oh well, so be
have
it.
you been sipping on some scissor?
Sir, exactly. I was going to say the same thing.
Everything to Sean right now sounds like Guitar Hero.